Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start, I think I ought to just go back a little bit further in history to nearly 100 years ago, when a chap called Lloyd George was Prime Minister, and he was actually a bit of an infamous womanizer. And he had a personal private secretary called Maurice Hankey, who used to organise all his visits and everything in his trips abroad. And on one occasion he was asked to organise a trip to Paris for Lloyd George, and which, as you can imagine, would have been quite exciting for such a man. And Hankey asked Lloyd George, he said, "Will Mrs. Lloyd George be coming Prime Minister?" And he said, Hankey, my dear fellow, you don't take sandwiches to a banquet." Apologies in advance if I'm the sandwich in this banquet of speeches today. So I'd like to try and give you a picture of how our cattle enterprise works. But before I go any further, I should point out that there's only one person in charge of the cattle at home, and it isn't me. So I claim no credit or blame for the content of what follows, but only the delivery. I'd also like to thank in advance Claire Powell and Ian Riddle for the more professional looking pictures. The rubbish ones belong to me. So here's a quick introduction of what I'm going to talk about today. My father's covered the history and background. I'm going to just add a little bit of information about our arable and soft fruit growing. Then I'll explain why we, as arable and soft fruit growers primarily, actually bother with cattle, why we particularly like blue greys, how we run our suckler herds, and if any of you are still there at the end, we'll just sum up with how we finish their calves. And for the brave, very brave few of you who are still awake at the end of it, I promise to reward you with a very exciting slide, which will not only get your pulse rate going and fill you all with pride, hopefully, but will also summarise our thoughts about suckler cows. So, to give you a brief overview of the other crops first, let's start with an aerial picture showing only about a third of our arable unit. We farm just under 900 acres of grade 1 and 2 land on the Angus coast near Carnoustie. And you can see the polytunnels here, which cover 60 acres of soft fruit, strawberries and blackberries, and a small amount of raspberries. And have 120 acres of potatoes, some of which you can see here and here, and there's a bit down there as well. And cereals and temporary and permanent grass make up the rest, with some beans and a field of cauliflower let to my neighbour and cousin. This part of the farm nearest the sea is actually raised beach, but it is still grade 1 land, capable of producing great crops of potatoes and barley. Every field is plumbed into the farm's irrigation system. And this is also the part of the farm where we outwinter nearly all of our cattle. You can see kale growing here in this grass field and also there as well. So why do we actually bother with cattle on this very fertile arable land? Well, the first answer is that we believe that the cattle are to a large degree responsible for that fertility. We see a considerable yield benefit in our potato and cereal crops from having grass in our rotation. And that's not just in the lighter land, it's also in the heavier land, which you can't see here. We also have 33 acres of dens and links, which are not suitable for arable cropping, but which can carry our spring calving herd with a bit of help from the temporary grass. Additionally, thanks to the hill farm which you saw before, we are able to run an autumn calving herd, which reduces our fixed labour and bull cost considerably. Finally, as well as being profitable, keeping cattle promotes much harmony between father and son, as it gives each of us our own area of responsibility. My son Tom, on the left here, he also enjoys working at the cattle, and with his grandfather there. And here they are with Kevin, the cattleman, bringing in a cow for foul foot treatment. Which leads me on to why we actually favour blue greys. Foul foot is actually one of the very few health issues we occasionally have. They're incredibly healthy cows. As a result of that, these heifers bought at Newcastleton are almost all of the replacements for a herd of 180 cows. And on average, they will produce 9 calves each. This means depreciation is very low, at around £30 a cow. In the past, we've even actually sold some cull cows at a profit. Blue greys are extremely hardy. Being great foragers, they can summer above 2,500 feet at Cashley and still come off the hill in great condition. They can winter outside with their calf as well, making them very economical to keep. They're very fertile. We only leave our Charolais bulls in with the cows for 9 weeks. And I'm not lying, Peter, over 90, wherever you are, 95% of them will rear a calf to finish. Perhaps most importantly, they have a wide pelvic area with milk capable of rearing a quick-growing Charolais cross calf despite their small size, making them extremely efficient and productive. Moving on to how we manage our cattle, they're split between 100 autumn calvers and 80 spring calvers, which keep 3 Charolais bulls happy, plus around 25 heifers in calf-tail Limousin. The autumn herd summer in the mountains and return to the shore in September. All cattle outwinter on strip-grazed kale. Our preferred variety is Bittern, as it does not get too leggy and lie over. This kale is perhaps slightly shorter than usual due to the exceptionally dry summer we had last year. But Dad has weighed some and he thinks it's around 25 tonnes an acre there. As you can see, the calves love kale too. The cow and calf together eat about 30 kilos of kale each day. We have 3 blocks of 8 acres of kale each in 3 different fields, which lets us split our herd up for ease of bulling and feeding. The cows also eat 2 kilos of 80% barley, 20% rapeseed meal, and minerals plus ad lib straw. And the calves have access to creep feed. At the end of April, the calves are weaned onto fresh grass, and the cows return to the glen in mid-May. The spring calving herd, on the other hand, remains at the coast on permanent and temporary grass. This picture of Ian's illustrates very well the size of calf a small cow can produce. After weaning, they clean up any potato and veg fields before going on to stubbles and hard rations of straw and minerals until January to condition them down for calving in February. After calving, they are fed a kilo of 70% barley and 30% rapeseed meal, plus silage and straw until they go back outside to grass in April. This is the only time we have cows and calves inside, and almost the only time where we might see the occasional scar or pneumonia. The only reason we actually have them inside at all is because we've nowhere else to put them. So, moving on quickly to the finishing regime. The bulls average 332 kilos at weaning. They're intensively fed, kill at an average of 14.2 months, with 80% achieving U-grade, and the average dead weight is 355 kilos, giving a daily gain from birth of 0.72 kilos. Dead weight gain. It says it up there. So here are the last and not the best of the autumn calf bulls just before sending off to ABP last week. The heifers average 280 kilos at 7 months when they're weaned. They're not forced as much as the bulls. Average age at slaughter is 16 months. Almost all are grades. with an average dead weight of 270 kilos, giving a daily dead weight gain of 0.46 kilos. Here is one of the first of the autumn calf heifers, which was in a batch that went away last week to AVP as well. Now, I promised you, if you lasted it out to the end of this, that I would finish with a very exciting picture, which should sum up our opinion on the best type of suckler cow for our system. So when I show you the two magnificent creatures in the next slide, please try and bear in mind which one would be the more economical to feed, and also which one would be the more efficient and productive kilo for kilo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Willie and James. That was absolutely excellent. We've got time for 2 or 3 questions on the back of each talk. So do you have any questions for Willie or James on their system?
Are you fattening your bulls outside on cereals? I love cereals. Are you fattening your bulls outside?
No, they come inside to finish.
They come inside to finish.
Yeah, but they're fed throughout the summer. We gradually build up the bull beef mix on them. So they are getting cereals, concentrates throughout the summer.
When they're spent and go on the grass in the summer, when there's wind and they go on the grass in the summer, they're getting 4 pounds of feeding. And then in a year like last year where it was very wet and the grass was poor, we stepped it up quickly. But this year we kept them at 4 until about the end of July, and then they go up a kind of £1 a week, come inside in the end of August when they're up to 9 or 10 pounds and they're just straight on to ad lib. I would emphasise that you saw these summer calves with their mothers. We don't feed any creep feed at the grass in the summer. We reckon we can get enough go in them. And with going on to a more modern mixture than we used to, a mixture with yeast and all the other bits and baking soda and so on, we can get them quickly onto a full ration without having the scours that we used to get when we put them too quickly onto barley, so that we're up to full rations in about 3 weeks.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Another time for another 1 or 2 questions for Willie and James? It's too good an opportunity to miss when you've got guys of this calibre in front of you.
What do you feed your heifers on then? What do you fatten them off with?
So what do you feed your heifers on?
The autumn-born heifers get grass only, and we start them in troughs in August, and they come in beginning of September. We bring them in early, and they're getting silage ad lib plus about 8 pounds of barley mix, and we step that up about December to 11, and we're killing them now, and they're just about all ready. The spring-born heifers, they've just been on a sort of maintenance ration and a bit more till now, and in the next 2 weeks we'll draw out any that aren't fit to go off the grass, go out of the house, and the other ones will get pushed on, and they'll finish up virtually ad lib barley.
Okay, Brian, last question from Brian in this session.
Given you're likely to be pretty much at the top of the game, what plans do you have for counteracting, mitigating the cuts in support that you're likely to face?
So, question from Brian was, what plans do you have for potentially handling cuts in support, if they come?
We've none. We'll wait to see what happens. And we've always been able to adjust in the past according to circumstances, and we will do then. Yep.